Have you ever pulled up your garlic or onions at the end of the season expecting massive, beautiful bulbs, only to find them the size of ping-pong balls? Or worse, did you do everything right, feed them heavily, only to have them rot in storage just a few weeks later? I know the frustration of putting in all that hard work, only to feel like the garden has somehow cheated you. But here is a controversial truth that most traditional gardeners get completely wrong. Giving your garlic and onions top dressing whenever you feel like it is actually destroying your harvest. Yes, you heard me correctly. That extra handful of fertilizer you throw down in late spring because you want them to grow just a little bit bigger is exactly what is ruining your crop. Today, I am going to share with you the smart, lazy gardener's secret to timing your top dressing. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to get 3 times the yield from your beds with absolutely minimal physical effort. Are you ready to stop digging and start harvesting? Let us dive in. To truly understand why timing is everything, we need to look at how garlic and onions actually function beneath the soil. Think of these plants as biological batteries. Their entire life purpose is to absorb energy from the sun through their leaves and slowly pack that energy down into the bulb for the next generation. But they do not do this all at once. The life cycle of an allium is strictly divided into 2 distinct phases. The first phase is all about building the solar panels, which means growing as many thick, healthy green leaves as possible. The second phase is the swelling phase, where the plant stops growing new leaves and transfers all that collected energy down into the bulb. If you misunderstand these 2 phases, you will apply the right nutrients at the wrong time. Imagine trying to force someone to eat a huge meal while they are trying to sleep. That is exactly what happens when you give top dressing randomly. If we want maximum results with minimum effort, we have to align our feeding schedule exactly with the biological clock of the plant. Let us start by addressing the biggest mistake I see year after year, which is treating fertilizer like a magic potion that fixes everything instantly. The truth is, early spring is the most critical time for your garlic and onions. When the snow melts and the soil begins to warm up, your plants are waking up starving. At this exact moment, they need a very specific nutrient to kickstart their growth, and that is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the building block for those green leaves. Remember, every single leaf your garlic plant grows corresponds to a layer of wrapping on the final bulb. If you only get 4 weak leaves, you will get a tiny bulb with poor storage quality. The smart approach here is to wait until you see the first 3 to 4 inches of new green growth pushing through your winter mulch. This tells you the roots are active and ready to eat. Applying top dressing before the roots wake up is just throwing your money away, as the spring rains will simply wash the nutrients past the root zone before the plant can use them. Now, let us talk about how to apply this first crucial feeding without breaking your back. The lazy gardening way is all about letting nature do the heavy lifting. You absolutely do not need to aggressively hoe or dig the fertilizer into the soil, which actually damages the shallow, delicate roots of your onions and garlic. Instead, we use a smart broadcast method. Simply scatter your nitrogen-rich fertilizer evenly over the surface of the soil, right over the mulch, if you have it. But here is the secret step you must not skip. You have to water it in deeply or apply it right before a heavy rain. Think of water as the delivery truck that carries the nutrients down into the root zone. If you just leave the fertilizer sitting on top of dry soil, the sun will cause the nitrogen to evaporate into the air as ammonia gas. By watering it in immediately, you secure those nutrients exactly where the plants need them, saving yourself hours of tedious digging. As we move further into the spring season, usually around 4 to 5 weeks after that first feeding, it is time for the second application. But pay close attention, because the menu needs to change. Your plants should have a strong, robust set of green leaves by now. If you keep pumping them full of pure nitrogen, you will encounter the dreaded thick neck syndrome. This is a disaster, where the plant keeps producing lush greens, but completely forgets to form a bulb. Have you ever harvested an onion that looked like a leek, with a thick green stem that never dried down? That is a classic symptom of too much late nitrogen. For this second feeding, we need to shift our focus to potassium and phosphorus. These are the nutrients that tell the plant to start bulbing up and storing energy. Potassium acts like a traffic cop, directing the starches and sugars out of the leaves and down into the underground bulb. Let us dive a little deeper into phosphorus, the unsung hero of the lazy gardener's harvest. While nitrogen builds the leaves, phosphorus is responsible for establishing a massive, aggressive root system. Garlic and onions have notoriously shallow, inefficient roots. They do not send deep tap roots down to scavenge for water. They rely entirely on the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. By applying a top dressing rich in phosphorus during the early to mid-growth stage, you are helping the plant cast a wider net. A wider root net means the plant can independently find its own water and nutrients later in the summer, which means less watering and worrying for you. It is the ultimate set it and forget it strategy. You are investing a small amount of effort now to build a self-sustaining plant that will do the hard work for you during the hottest months of the year. One nutrient that almost everyone forgets, which is absolutely vital for garlic and onions, is sulfur. If you want that sharp, spicy bite in your garlic and onions that will store in your pantry for 8 to 10 months without rotting, sulfur is your secret weapon. Sulfur is what creates those pungent aromatic compounds. Without it, your harvest will taste bland and spoil quickly. Many commercial fertilizers completely lack sulfur. As a smart gardener, you should look for top dressings like ammonium sulfate or potassium sulfate. Applying a sulfur-rich top dressing during the second feeding acts as an organic armor for your bulbs. It thickens the papery skins that protect the cloves, sealing out moisture and soil-borne diseases. This simple addition is the difference between garlic that lasts until December and garlic that lasts until the following May. Here is where we need to talk about the absolute point of no return. This is the golden rule of allium growing. You must stop all fertilizing completely and entirely, about 4 to 6 weeks before your expected harvest date. For most gardeners, this means cutting off the food supply by late May or early June. Why is this so critical? Because if you apply top dressing when the plant is trying to finish its life cycle, you trigger what is called secondary growth. The garlic will become confused. Instead of hardening off and curing its final wrappers, it will try to shoot out new leaves from the center of the bulb. This splits the bulb wide open in the dirt. Split bulbs allow dirt, fungi, and moisture to get inside the cloves. They will rot in the ground or they will rot on your curing rack. Starving them at the end is exactly what forces them to size up and finish strong. Let us decode a common myth that causes a lot of unnecessary panic. Many gardeners see the tips of their garlic or onion leaves turning yellow in the middle of spring and immediately assume the plant is starving. They panic and throw a heavy dose of fertilizer at it. But wait, before you grab the top dressing, you need to read the plant correctly. If only the very oldest, lowest leaves are turning yellow while the new growth emerging from the center is bright green and strong, your plant is perfectly fine. It is simply cannibalizing its older, inefficient solar panels to feed the new ones. It is a natural process. However, if the entire plant looks pale, yellowish green, and stunted, that is your genuine signal for a nitrogen deficiency. Learning to read your plant's subtle signals saves you from over-fertilizing, which, as we now know, is far more dangerous than under-fertilizing. Another brilliant strategy for the lazy gardener is utilizing organic compost as a slow-release top dressing. Synthetic fertilizers give a massive, instant spike of nutrients, which can sometimes shock the plant or wash away quickly in a heavy spring downpour. High-quality compost, on the other hand, breaks down slowly, feeding the soil biology over several weeks. By applying a 1-inch layer of rich compost around the base of your plants in early spring, you are accomplishing 3 things at once with a single effort. You are providing a steady trickle of balanced nutrients. You are suppressing early weed seeds from germinating. And you are acting like a sponge to hold moisture near those shallow roots. It is the ultimate multitasking hack. Just ensure you keep the compost slightly pulled back from the actual stem of the plant to prevent any fungal stem rot from taking hold during wet weather. Let us talk about the specific challenges of growing hardneck winter garlic. Because this garlic was planted in the fall, it spent the winter developing a root system under the frozen ground. When spring arrives, it explodes with growth much faster than spring-planted onions. Therefore, the timing window for your top dressing is much tighter. You cannot wait until May to feed winter garlic. The very first day you can walk on your garden soil without it turning into a muddy mess is the day you should apply your first nitrogen top dressing. If you wait until the plant is already 12 inches tall, you have missed the most critical window for leaf development. The size of the bulb is directly dictated by the size of the plant before the summer solstice arrives. Once the days start getting shorter in late June, the plant stops growing leaves entirely, no matter how much you feed it. What happens if you experience a very rainy, cold spring? This is a scenario where the smart gardener adapts. Heavy, continuous rain will leach nitrogen deep into the soil, far below where your garlic and onion roots can reach it. In this situation, a single, heavy application of top dressing is a terrible idea because it will just wash away. Instead, you need to divide your planned fertilizer amount into 3 smaller applications spaced out every 10 to 14 days. This spoon-feeding technique ensures that the plants have a constant, accessible supply of food despite the terrible weather. It requires a tiny bit more scheduling, but the physical effort is still just a casual stroll through the garden tossing granules. This method guarantees you will not lose your entire nutrient investment to a single week of heavy thunderstorms. Now, let us dispel the myth of deep cultivation. So many gardening books tell you to gently work the fertilizer into the top 2 inches of soil. For garlic and onions, this is terrible advice. Their roots are incredibly shallow and fragile, resembling thin hairs just below the surface. Every time you drag a hoe or a cultivator through that top layer of soil, you are slicing through thousands of tiny feeder roots. The plant then has to waste precious energy repairing its root system instead of growing larger bulbs. This is why the lazy method of surface broadcasting, followed by a deep watering, is scientifically superior. You preserve the entire root network intact. The only thing you should be doing to the soil surface is adding mulch to keep it cool and moist. Step away from the hoe, save your back, and let the water move the nutrients downward for you. Wood ashes are a common item many homesteaders have lying around, and they often wonder if they can use them as a top dressing. The answer is yes, but with extreme caution. Wood ashes are highly alkaline and very rich in potassium, which sounds great for the bulb swelling phase. However, garlic and onions prefer slightly acidic soil, with a pH right around 6.5. If you dump heavy amounts of wood ash onto your beds, you will dramatically spike the soil pH, locking up other essential nutrients and stunting your plants. The smart way to use wood ash is to apply a very light dusting, no more than a handful per square yard, during the second feeding phase in late spring. This provides that crucial potassium boost for sizing up the bulbs without wrecking your soil chemistry. It is a fantastic free resource, provided you use it with a light, lazy hand. We need to talk about the physical signs that tell you the bulbing phase has officially begun, which is your cue to completely stop all nitrogen. For onions, you will start to see the soil cracking and bulging around the base of the plant as the bulb pushes outward. You might even see the top of the bulb pushing right up out of the dirt. For hardneck garlic, the absolute definitive sign is the appearance of the scape. The scape is that curly, alien-looking flower stalk that shoots up from the center of the plant. The moment you see that scape forming, the plant is signaling that leaf production is over and reproductive bulb production has begun. Any nitrogen applied after the scape appears is completely wasted and will only harm the storage quality of your garlic. Snapping off those scapes and stopping the fertilizer are the two final chores before the lazy wait for harvest begins. Let us touch upon liquid fertilizers and foliar feeding. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, your plants look a little sad in early spring. Maybe the soil is too cold for the granular top dressing to break down properly. In this specific case, a liquid feed like fish emulsion or compost tea can act like an intravenous energy boost. Liquid fertilizers are immediately available to the plant, both through the roots and absorbed directly through the leaves. Using a watering can to drench the foliage in early spring can jumpstart a sluggish garlic bed. However, this is only a temporary fix. It does not replace the need for a solid top dressing that feeds the soil over time. Think of the liquid feed as a cup of morning coffee, while the granular top dressing is the hearty breakfast that keeps them going all day long. A crucial element of the smart gardener's strategy is managing soil moisture during the top dressing phases. Fertilizer is essentially composed of various salts. If you apply a granular top dressing during a hot, dry spell and do not water it in adequately, those fertilizer salts will actually draw moisture out of the plant's roots, causing fertilizer burn. The tips of your leaves will turn brown and crispy almost overnight. To avoid this entirely preventable disaster, always check the weather forecast. The absolute best time to stroll out and toss your top dressing is when the sky is dark and a steady, gentle rain is guaranteed for the next few hours. You stay out of the hot sun, the rain does the watering for you, and the plants receive a perfectly diluted, safe dose of nutrients. It is the pinnacle of lazy, efficient gardening. What about the difference between feeding onions grown from seeds versus onions grown from sets? This is a nuance many miss. Onion sets are tiny, dormant bulbs. Because they already have a reserve of energy, they jump out of the ground aggressively and require that first nitrogen top dressing almost immediately upon showing green shoots. Onions grown from seed, however, are delicate and tiny for the first 2 months of their lives. If you hit fragile onion seedlings with a heavy granular top dressing, you will burn them to a crisp. Seedling onions require a very gentle, diluted liquid feed for the first month, only graduating to a proper granular top dressing once they have achieved the thickness of a pencil. Understanding this subtle difference prevents you from accidentally murdering your fragile seedlings with too much love. Let us look at the role of mulch in your top dressing strategy. Many lazy gardeners, myself included, love a thick layer of straw or leaf mulch to suppress weeds and hold moisture. But when it comes time to fertilize, mulch can be a barrier. If you use a slow-release organic fertilizer like blood meal or bone meal, and you just toss it on top of dry straw, it will just sit there feeding the air. The soil microbes that break down organic fertilizers live in the dark, moist zone where the soil meets the mulch. Therefore, you must temporarily push the mulch aside. Apply your top dressing directly to the bare soil surface, water it in, and then pull the mulch back over it. This creates a perfect humid incubator for the soil biology to digest the nutrients and feed them to your alliums. It takes 10 extra seconds per plant, but guarantees a massive return on investment. I want to circle back to the problem of rotting onions in storage, because this breaks so many gardeners' hearts. The main culprit, aside from late nitrogen, is a lack of calcium in the soil. Calcium acts like the glue that holds the cell walls of the plant together. When onions have strong cell walls, they cure tightly and resist fungal infections in the pantry. While garlic and onions do not need massive amounts of calcium like tomatoes do, a deficiency will lead to soft, mushy bulbs. If you know your soil is calcium deficient, adding a top dressing of gypsum in the early spring is a fantastic, lazy solution. Gypsum provides easily accessible calcium without altering your soil's pH levels. It is an invisible insurance policy that guarantees the massive bulbs you harvest in July will still be firm and delicious when you want to cook with them in January. As we approach the end of the growing season, your garden should be operating on autopilot. You did the smart work early. You applied your nitrogen when the leaves were growing. You switched to phosphorus and potassium to swell the bulbs. You stopped feeding entirely 4 weeks ago. Now, the final step in the lazy gardener's playbook is simply withholding water. Just as you stop the fertilizer, you must stop watering your garlic and onions about 2 to 3 weeks before harvest. The soil needs to dry out completely. This dry period signals to the plant that the end is near, causing the green tops to flop over and the papery skins on the bulbs to tighten up and dry out. If you keep the soil wet and rich during this final phase, the bulbs will stay swollen with water, making them impossible to cure properly. Let the soil bake. Your plants know exactly what to do. Ultimately, growing the biggest, most impressive garlic and onions in your neighborhood does not require magic. And it certainly does not require breaking your back with endless digging and weeding. It requires becoming a smart observer of your plant's natural rhythms. By understanding that early spring is for building leaves with nitrogen, late spring is for building bulbs with potassium, and early summer is for starving the plant to force it across the finish line, you take complete control of the harvest. You stop wasting expensive fertilizer by applying it at the wrong times. You prevent rot and storage issues before they even begin. You transform your allium beds into a highly efficient, low-maintenance system. This is the essence of smart homesteading. Work with nature's timing, not against it, and nature will reward you with baskets overflowing with perfect massive bulbs. So, here is the incredible turning point. The secret to massive garlic and onions is not doing more. It is actually knowing exactly when to stop. By front-loading your feeding schedule in early spring and stepping away completely a month before harvest, you are forcing the plant to redirect all its power directly into creating those huge, spicy bulbs you want. Doing the right thing today will literally save you months of frustration dealing with rotting vegetables this winter. Remember the golden rules: nitrogen early for the leaves, potassium later for the bulbs, and absolutely no top dressing once the scapes form or the bulbs start pushing out of the dirt. If you apply this smart, lazy method, I guarantee your garden will explode with the best allium harvest you have ever seen. Thank you so much for watching and spending time in the garden with me today. If this video changed the way you think about fertilizing, please hit that subscribe button and give the video a like so other gardeners can find these tips. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever accidentally ruined your onion harvest by feeding them too late in the season? Drop a comment below and share your garlic and onion growing experiences with our community.